The blowout sale continues. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. It's time for that weekly Mod Collection Demo Shop update, but as per usual, let's kick it off with the Mod Collection. They gave us 12 new ones again, 3 weeks running. So even though that's less than we're used to, they did produce some really cool ones this week at fantastic prices. So here's a Les Paul Custom in what they called Roasted Ruby finish, only $3,900. That's over $1,000 off. And you get a cool custom color finish. I was very tempted by this. It kind of reminds me of the Sunset Metallic of the late 80s. It's not exactly the same. It's a bit of a darker hue, but it's got real lipstick vibes to it. But the gold hardware matches well. It looks like you've got ultra age knobs, which matches again with the gold hardware. It was a full-on refinish. It appears to be gloss instead of satin. No matching headstock or anything like that, but hey, historic style truss rod cover, that's a bonus. But it did have a little bit of ugliness by the nut, and was relatively heavy for a custom of the modern era. It's not a big surprise that sold quickly. Next up was another seriously tempting one, Nefarious Trans Green Top. You've got this cool gloss green burst kind of color changing effect thing going on, but then they blacked everything else out, and do you see that? That's a Buckethead style kill switch. Pair that with your really dark fretboard and having your toggle switch down here now. Had they had put the second kill switch on it instead of having the 3 controls, I probably would have had to have bought that. And it's a satin finished back. I wasn't really a big fan of the color of the mahogany on the back though. A dark stain would have paired pretty good. But oh, mini Grover tuners on a standard. Wow. I wonder if that's why it made it to the Mod Collection. Somebody forgot to change the programming when they were switching from SG Modern to the Les Paul standards, because generally we haven't seen those style tuners on it. But it does look like we've got one of those demo shop serial numbers on it. So whoever got that, please enjoy it. That thing's awesome. Speaking of awesome, here's a white Les Paul Custom that's been all monochromed out. Like you've got actual chrome, then you got the whole black and white stuff going on everywhere, including on your knobs, including the binding around the guitar, fretboard inlays. This really reminds me of my Ghost Les Paul Custom that we reviewed and documented in this episode. The headstock has a similar vibe going on with our truss rod cover, but this one doesn't get the whole double stinger action. But still, not a terrible price for a newer custom with a warranty. But how do you guys feel about Crepuscular Glow, or however you're supposed to pronounce that? So it's a 50 standard at $2,800. It essentially looks like they took a cherry sunburst and put a pearlescent purple coat over top of it that appears at some angles and not others. This is the 3rd week in the row that the Mod Collection guys have been toying with these finishes. One of these weeks I'll have to pick it up just so we can see the effect in person. But again, the closest one would probably be that old Les Paul special that we documented in this episode. But it was a complete refinish. They went a little bit heavier on that effect on the back. It's either that or the light's just hitting it in the perfect way. And we're getting so close to finding the serial number I want. 20, 20, 20, 20. But even for being a satin finish, that's still a fair price. Following that up, another one that called me to buy it. This one was a 60 standard in Ocean Burst. Now they wanted $3,000 for this one, but I think it was totally worth it. That is an ultra sparkle blue top, and to get that on a USA standard, which are fantastic base level guitars, but you get the cool custom shop exotic finish, that's perfect for a player. But then to make things even better, it's got a nice dark natural back and sides. So it's going to be very similar to a Sparkle Top Deluxe of the 70s like we talked about in this episode. They didn't mess with our headstock too much besides having the age tuners. That one was a no-brainer. But then we had Sparkling Wisteria Satin on a 335. Now Gibson recently just came out with the whole deep purple finish. This one's a little bit of a lighter purple. I think it looks pretty good on a 335. I'm sure BB King would approve, because they also did the entire backside. This Les Paul Studio was done up in deep shade green. Out of all the guitars released this week, this one was one of my least favorite ones. I mean, they've got the whole black witch hat knobs, black poker chip, and they're trying to do the whole black and cream thing. Probably get some St. Patty's vibes going on, but there's just too many colors going on with this one. I think this would have looked really cool had they had scraped the edge to reveal a natural wooden binding, because then that would have played pretty good with the green finish. But okay, I didn't see that. On release date, I like what they did here. It's got like a fade vibe to it, but just on the neck. If only we could have got a black border around this in a teardrop shape, then it would have probably been really cool. There was another green one called Shining Clover. This time is a 335, so they got kind of a similar vibe going on here with a very pale shamrock green. But ladies and gentlemen, we have found our thumbnail. I like those tuner tips, and then of course they have to put the giant 4-leaf clover on here. I feel like they should have released this last week though, because St. Patty's Day was over by the time this thing was even out. But I guess you don't necessarily need a holiday to be lucky. But that's interesting. They only refinished the top and back. They left the sides a more natural mahogany color as well as the neck. But sadly, maybe due to the timing or just ES guitars take longer to sell, it's still available at the time of recording. But check out Foxy Fuchsia. It's $2,300. This reminds me of like a blacklight neon poster where you got that fuchsia finish and then you've got this dark blue pick guard and then they blacked everything else out. And then it almost looks like they just put a clear pink plate over top of a regular truss rod cover to give it that whole glow effect. And then the back was also done up in the same satin fuchsia finish. That guitar would be really cool at a laser tag, and someone agreed and picked it up. The antique translucent cherry Les Paul Classic might not be as fancy as some of these other guitars we've seen, but it's got a nice, very traditional effect to it. In fact, it reminds me of my haunted Les Paul Standard. Check out this review and demo if you want to learn the story of that. But it's got a similar effect going on here. It's got the gold pickup rings, hardware, etc. They put a TP6 on there just for fine measure. That's why I get 70s vibes. But ooh, it's got one of the old style Les Paul Classic truss rod covers on it, and they aged the finish a little bit as well. That's actually incredibly nice. I think I slept on that one. Although adding a black burst in all the usual locations on the back would have been incredibly cool as well. That wasn't too bad for a custom color classic. Next up was a 335 in Midnight Sparkle, probably something that would look better in person because the photos don't do it too much justice, but this one kind of shows you what you're working with. But would you look at that? Adjust the contrast and you can see it's got a matching headstock and it was completely redone. That one was worth it. And then the last one is for you winos out there, Zinfinburst. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on here. It almost looks like you just have a little bit of a burst right here at the top. But then we have these staggered pickup pole pieces, which looks really, really strange. Like that looks way higher than it normally should be, but it might just be the edge cover that they have on here. And then you've got like that whole snakeskin effect that they've done in the past. Custom Bucker Alnico 3 in the bridge and a Burst Bucker 61 in the neck. How can they do that? Because normally those have a slug coil. Did they just put the leather cover over top of the whole pickup and then glue these pole pieces on? Kind of similar to what James Hetfield did to make his EMG sets look normal in the Uncle Milty? I'm not sure on that, but it looks like it was a complete refinish. So even if we are getting 4 less guitars than we normally do, at least it seems the quality of the pieces are going up a little bit. Because I'm sure it's really hard to stay motivated and create really unique pieces when you have to do it every single week, especially when you got guys on the internet talking about how good or bad your job was. I try to be friendly and keep things entertaining here. But alright, let's talk about the demo shop. Thursday, they dropped a whole bunch of guitars and instantaneously, they didn't wait till Friday this time, they put a 15% off sale on seemingly everything. However, this time it doesn't seem like a Gibson planned out sale, but rather Reverb is just having a week-long sale of 15% off for sellers who wish to participate. Thankfully, I was able to catch this the minute it happened, and I actually bought one guitar for a review and demo, but you can see some of these prices that were happening. But let's go ahead and see the coolest ones of the batch. So first off, they had one of those 58 reissue Mahogany Explorers. So we've recently talked about all the Korina ones. The original 50s ones made a Korina, but the custom shop used to make them in mahogany before they brought back the Korina and made them $10,000, but they were only $5,000 then, so this one showed up at $4,200, and then with the sale pricing on top of that, of course this thing sold instantaneously. It was a very good deal. Now sure, it's got a little bit of a chip back here, looks like a little bit of unevenness in the VOS, but I didn't see anything too egregious. But this 50 Standard Faded was a screaming deal. I mean, sure, it's a pretty pinstripey top. Maybe not the widest flame in the world, but it's looking alright. It's not like they stole the case from you or anything. But that for $1,700? Yeah, that was a good price for someone. And it sold fast. Kind of a similar story on this RO. It's actually a very nice top, and generally these are about $6,500 brand new, so to get one with a 2-year playability warranty for like $4,700, yeah, that's not too bad. There's also a custom shop TV Yellow Junior. I mean, that's not the worst price in the world. They're about $4,000 brand new, and usually on the used market, they run somewhere between $2,000 and $2,800, so it's slightly on the higher end, but you're getting a very desirable color, and you're getting it from the manufacturer, so I think this is worth it if you were in the market for one of these. I was actually tempted to pick this up, because there's another junior model that this recently came out that I thought, well, maybe I could use this as the comparison piece. This hand-selected 60 Standard was only about $2,000. That's really good for a hand-select top. Those will run you nearly $3,000 brand new. But this classic for a little under $1,800, I mean, it might not look all that impressive in the photos, but if you scrolled all the way to the back, it's got one of the government green cases, which is worth like $400 to $500 on its own. So that was actually a pretty good deal for someone. There's one of the Gibson.com exclusive Deep Purple 335s. They're normally $3,300 brand new, so you basically just swap these digits around. That's not a bad price if you wanted one of those. But there was one exclusive custom paint offered within the demo shop. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the most crazy one we've ever seen, but it looks like a tobacco sunburst finish with a slight dark edge to it, so a different take on the traditional tri-burst finish, and the fact that this layer is not super ultra red, but they call it Satin Ambered tri-burst. But I really like this hand select top. That is just going to have so much movement in person. On top of that, you get all the awesome wood grain. Yep, that one's a winner. But there was one very strange listing. I think this might have been a mistake. It was an ES335 figured. I'm recording this on Thursday, but it says it uploaded 3 days ago. So that means 1, 2, 3. One lone listing on a Monday. Typically, the demo shop uploads on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The mod collection uploads on Wednesdays. So that was uploaded on an off day, and they only had one photo. That's unlike the demo shop. That had to have been some sort of a mistake, but yet it says it's sold. But sometimes Reverb's weird like that. If a listing was just ended, sometimes it actually shows up as sold. So that was a bit of a freak. But to round out tonight's episode, let's check out the European demo shop. Honestly, nothing too crazily exciting here. Whole bunch of players grade stuff. I did not really see anything that caught my attention to really point out to you. But as far as new listings, there's one of the non-reverse Thunderbirds, a Pelham Blue Les Paul Modern, an interesting top 50 standard, a Lefty Satin Tribute, one of the Epiphone USA casinos. Wow, a screaming deal on a Les Paul Special. That's gotta be one of the older ones. Nah, it's not. It's one of the very early series 2019, when the original collection first came out. 61 SG, 335 traditional. That one's all the way from 2017. And then lastly, one of these Songwriter acoustics, which always have a pretty interesting vibe with their rosewood back and sides and headstock veneers. Still couldn't tell you what year it was made in though. All right, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed this week's recap. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.